My life for ire. For Undoon.
As per the poll results, the Warcraft 3 medieval run is next. No magic, just swords, knights, and lots of towers. I'm not sure what we'll do for the non-human campaigns, given that orcs and elves aren't real, but we'll get there when we get there. Surprisingly, quite a lot of people also want to see an eco-friendly Starcraft 2 run, without gas. So after the medieval run, I'll do that one next. Anywho, the rules are simple. Only use the unit or hero introduced for each mission for combat, for example, Dark Templar and Amon's Reach. Since the Prologue, main campaign, and Epilogue introduce the same units, the debut of each unit will be treated as separate in each segment. Workers are allowed. If no new units are introduced, build only starting units. Unit factions are allowed on these missions because the starting armies in this campaign are garbage. Photon cannons are allowed for missions where the new or available units can't shoot up. Only use passive Spear of Adun abilities. For added challenge, no shield batteries. The run will be done on Brutal, because B comes first in the alphabet. Dark Whispers introduces probes, zealots, stalkers, sentries, DTs, High Templar, Archons, Immortals, and Colossi. Zealots are frontline fighters, stalkers can teleport, sentries heal, Dark Templar steal, High Templar storm, Archons form, and Immortals and Colossi are good at making Terrans cry. I need to free 3 groups of prisoners before Kerrigan destroys the station. I've already pointed out that things would be easier if Kerrigan just worked with Zeratul to achieve both their goals, but as a noob, it's not my place to question characters or logic. Anywho, using the expert tactic of the Protoss Death Ball, I save each group of prisoners, and the mission ends. Ghosts in the Fog introduces Phoenixes, Void Rays, Tempests, and Carriers. But diversity is overrated, so I go mass Void Ray. Since gas is in short supply, I use the expert tactic of sacrificing workers to get Vespi, and my base is overrun. After lowering the difficulty to hard, I sacrifice countless workers to build up a fleet of Void Rays to push through enemy lines. Eventually I breach the temple, and the mission ends. Evil Awoken only introduces Zeratul. After purging my stalkers, there's too many defenders in the middle third of the mission, so I lowered the difficulty to normal.
Knives for the master!
Casual! I had to do this on casual.
But Pi, what about for ire?
There is no for ire. There's never been any for ire. For ire is just a myth. Anywho, Growing Shadow introduces Zealots and Stalkers. Zealots are tanky melee fighters, while Stalkers can shoot up and teleport. The mission is fairly straightforward. Spam Stalkers and Blink Micro, get to the Templar base, and reach Artanis with my Stalkers. Now why Zeratul didn't bother using Void Prison or Void Armor to help free Artanis is beyond me, but as a noob I don't have time to question proper procedure for freeing heads of state from Eldritch abominations. Spear of Adun introduces the Photon Cannon and Shield Battery. The former can shoot both ground and air targets, while the latter yields shields. Unfortunately, despite my best efforts to cannon rush the enemy, my attempts to sneak pylons by the enemy creep are constantly foiled. Since cannons and batteries are technically structures, I decide to apply rule number 2 to this mission. So I also get Zealots and Stalkers. Now a pro would clear the defenders around each cell first and destroy the creep simultaneously to skip the attack waves they trigger. But as a noob, I don't have time to use clever strategies for this mission. Using the expert tactic of massing stalkers and spamming Blink Micro, I clear each cell one by one, dealing with all the attack waves and ending the mission. Sky Shields is another mission that doesn't introduce any new units. As per rule number 2, I can only make stuff for my starting army. As per rule number 3, I also get cannons to defend. There's not enough time or resources to secure the third, so I lower the difficulty to hard. Now why Raynor doesn't send more reinforcements to secure the platform currently barreling through the atmosphere is beyond me, but as a noob I don't have time to question strategic decisions against brainwashed rebels. Anywho, the final stabilizer has banshees defending them, so I build cannons.
But Pi, I thought you could only defend with cannons.
Well, I am defending.
Defending what?
My dignity. Eventually I use the expert tactic of running away from my problems to lure them away from the objective, ending the mission. Brothers in Arms introduces Immortals, tanky assault mechs that excel against enemy armor but suck against light units. I need to reach the Keystone while protecting my allies from constant headache attacks. Now given that the Hyperion and Spear of Adun are a thing, it's odd that our heroes don't just drop on top of the Keystone to save time. But as a noob, I don't have time to question strategic decisions when dealing with brainwashed rebels. Anywho, with an army of Immortals, I melt the hybrid each time they attack, allowing me to push through Mobius lines. To deal with the air units defending the bonuses, I set up Photon cannons to destroy them during disruptions.
But Pi, I thought you could only use cannons for defense.
Well, I am defending.
Defending what?
My dignity. Anywho, I reach the Keystone and the mission ends. Amon's Reach introduces Dark Templar, cloaked warriors who excel at sneaking but are weak at seeking. I need to clear 4 bays of creep around the map. Now given that the Spear of Adun is a thing, it's a wonder Artanis doesn't just save time by blasting the 4 bays. It's odd that they don't give you the option to do that. Anywho, to get to each bay, I take out the enemy detection first, then send the defenders to the afterlife. Each time a Void Thrasher appears, my Dark Templar easily reduce it to Void Sushi. The only issue is the abundance of Overseers around the map. Evidently, Dark Templar can't jump, so I just have to constantly move out of range of their detection. The Warp Conduit takes a ton of damage, but I just barely clear the last bay before it's destroyed, ending the mission.
The launch bays have been reclaimed. Matriarch, you may complete the evacuation.
You have saved my people, Artanis.
Last Stand only gives me Kadaran monoliths, which can destroy armored targets but are slow and expensive. Since it's a structure, I suppose rule number 2 can apply here. I use my Dark Templar and Stalkers for defense. Dark Templar ambush the early attack waves as I transition into Mass Stalker and wall off and my base was overrun. I really don't want to lower the difficulty again, so as per rule number 2, I also choose the factions for the Stalker and Dark Templar. Stalkers now get shields when they teleport, and Dark Templar are now completely broken. This won't be an issue later in the campaign, since I don't get any Dark Templar as starting units from here on out, except for Vorazun. I need to hold for 25 minutes until the temple is ready to overload and blow up Shakuras. Now given that the Spear of Adun is a thing, it's odd that Artanis doesn't just use it to do the job. If carriers can purify planets, surely the Spear of Adun can too. But as a noob, it's not my place to question strategy during the end of the universe. Anywho, using the expert tactic of spamming Dark Templar while I mass Stalkers and blink micro, I hold out until the mission ends. Forbidden Weapon introduces the Sentry, a support unit that can heal and create shields against ranged attacks. As seen in the Sith video, they're really expensive and not for direct combat, so I lowered the difficulty to normal. Casual! I had to lower it all the way to casual. Don't worry, I shouldn't need to lower the difficulty again for a while. Using my expert tactic of spamming Guardian shields, my sentries blast through the Tal'Darim and reach the vault, ending the mission. Temple of Unification introduces the Phoenix, an air-to-air fighter that can lift ground targets. It excels against light units but melts to capital ships in static defense. So naturally, I get it on a mission with multiple carriers, battlecruisers, missile turrets, and photon cannons. Phoenixes can't shoot while lifting ground targets, so to get around this, I spam as many as possible to neutralize ground attacks. I can't wipe out my enemies since Phoenixes can't lift structures, so I elect to mass 2 separate fleets to rush the 5 locks around the map. This becomes a hassle since enemy ravens keep dropping auto turrets, which I can't lift, to destroy my expansion, depriving me of valuable Vespene. Nevertheless, I launch my attack and my Phoenixes are all dead. Also, they retook the locks. The problem is that the last 2 locks have defenses that I can't lift. Lock 4 has missile turrets and Lock 5 has Archons, which are massive units and thus immune to Graviton Beam. The good news is that I only need to clear the immediate area around each lock to secure it. So I stay out of range of the turrets at Lock 4, retake Lock 2 when it falls, and swing around to Lock 5. I do need to be careful to avoid the Archon splash damage, but once the other defenders are cleared, I use the expert tactic of running away from my problems to lure them from the objective, allowing me to seize the 5th lock. In all, it took me about 2 hours to finally figure out how to do this mission with Phoenix only on Brutal. Infinite Cycle introduces Artanis and Primal Kerrigan. The former can stun, heal, and resurrect, while the latter has Kinetic Blast, Chain Lightning, and Spawn Baneling. Now why neither Artanis nor Kerrigan bring reinforcements into the temple is never clearly stated. I imagine having a few Immortals or Ultras would be pretty useful, but as a noob I don't have time to question strategic decisions when dealing with the end of the universe. Anyways, the mission is pretty straightforward. Stun and heal with Artanis, snipe with Kerrigan, and win. Harbinger of Oblivion introduces High Templar, spellcasters that can neutralize other spellcasters and zap groups of enemies. They can also merge into Archons, tanky balls of energy that are surprisingly easy to destroy.
Somebody call for an exterminator.
I have to destroy 4 locks scattered around the map, which will close the gateway to the void before it eats Kerrigan. While Kerrigan does send attacks to help me, they're pathetically weak, making me wonder whether she actually wants to win this mission. Anywho, noob challenge, no time to question things. At first I tried to mass High Templar and spam storms, but evidently getting zapped 50 times isn't enough to destroy advanced military hardware. I then attempt to add Archons to the mix while backing them up with storms and merging more of them when my Templar run out of energy and Kerrigan's dead. So I lowered the difficulty to hard, repeating the strategy of massing Archons with High Templar to back them up. Using feedback, I counter hybrid dominators, battlecruisers, and ravens, allowing me to push to each lock, ending the mission. Steps of the Rite introduces Void Rays, warships that deal more damage the longer they attack. They're weak to masses of light units, but with the expert tactic of spamming as many as possible, it's a rather easy weakness to overcome. I need to beat 4 ascendants around the map when my base is periodically attacked by drug-induced hallucinations. Now, given that the Spear of Adun is a thing, it's odd that Artanis doesn't just bombard the ascendants to save time. But as a noob, it's not my place to question tactical decisions when dealing with a drug cult. Anywho, after building up a fleet of Void Rays, I proceed to laser the 4 ascendants, ending the mission. Rakshir doesn't introduce any new units, so I get access to Void Rays and Stalkers. As the saying goes, a Void Ray a day keeps the space squid away. As per rule number 2, I get to choose the Nerazim faction for the Void Ray, giving it extra range. I need to help Alarak push Malash to the pit. Now, I'd question why Artanis doesn't just threaten their arena with orbital bombardment, but obviously ignoring Tal'Darim customs would invalidate Alarak's ascension to High Lord and prevent the Dalam from securing their cooperation. So this mission is mostly reasonable. What isn't reasonable is Karax asking me to harvest Solarite poop during the duel when we could easily wait until after the mission is over. While I try to split my rays up to get the bonus, the attacks on this mission are pretty insane, so I use the expert tactic of running away from my problems to run towards the objective of pushing Malash to the pit. Before my expansion is destroyed, I get Malash to the pit, and the mission ends. Templar's Charge introduces carriers, powerful capital ships that can launch smaller ships called interceptors. Individually, they're fairly weak, but en masse, they can flatten anything. I need to destroy 3 power cells to destroy Revenskar. Now, one might question why Artanis doesn't just use the Spear of Adun to bombard the cells, but the mission intro gives a decent excuse. It's busy getting ambushed. Of course, this doesn't answer why Artanis warps into an asteroid field where such a trap could easily be laid, and why he doesn't just blast through the asteroids to bombard Revenskar directly. But as a noob, it's not my place to question strategic decisions when attacking a base of brainwashed rebels. Anywho, the mission is fairly straightforward. Clear each platform, move my base around, build up a fleet of carriers, and win. Unsealing the Past introduces Colossi, tall walkers that laser ground armies but can't shoot up. As per rule number 3, cannons are allowed for defense. I need to escort the megalith to 5 locks around the map. Now, why Karax doesn't wait until the area is secured before activating the megalith is beyond me, but as a noob, there's no time to question strategy when turning on a robot army. Wait, not like that, not like that! Starting with Lock 2, there's already air units to deal with. By Lock 4, there's Guardians. To deal with the air units, I build cannons near Locks 3 and 4 while luring mutas into them.
But Pi, I thought you could only use cannons for defense.
Well, I am defending.
Defending what?
My dignity. Of course, cannon rushing can only go so far, and cannons can't do much against Guardians. So using the expert tactic of ignoring my problems, I clear a path to the 5th lock and end the mission. Purification doesn't introduce anything, so as per rule number 2, I use Zealots and Immortals. To make life easier, I choose Sentinels and Annihilators. The former resurrects upon death, and the latter barrages enemies using shadow cannons. I need to destroy 12 null circuits around the map to awaken my robot army. Now, why Artanis doesn't just destroy the circuits from orbit, or have a secondary force waiting for the stasis field to go down so they can land on Cybros immediately after disabling the fields is beyond me. Noob challenge, no time to question things. Anywho, by using Sentinels to tank and shadow cannons to focus down priority targets, I proceed to return to base because the attacks on this mission are really annoying. Nevertheless, I push through Zerg lines and end the mission. Templar's Return introduces Alarak, Vorazun, Phoenix, and Karax. Alarak damages enemies in a wave, Vorazun teleports Phoenix tanks, and Karax takes control of enemy robotic units. Alarak makes a reasonable suggestion to destroy our enemies from orbit, but this is the Noob challenge and there's no time to employ practical solutions to my problems. Area 1 is fairly straightforward, tank and blast with Alarak and spam Shadow Fury with Vorazun. Area 2 isn't truly doable since I do have to control old units to win, but since Karax is the one controlling them, it's perfectly legal from a certain point of view. As always, Area 3 isn't doable either, since I need Artanis to keep my army alive. The host doesn't introduce any new units, but surely my starting army will be absolutely pathetic. For comparison, Shatter the Sky and Death from Above actually attempt to give me decent starting armies, but anyways, Noob challenge, no time to question. Hold on, so the objective of this mission is to destroy these 5 void shards. And given the fact that Artanis just bombs Amon's body at the end, why doesn't he just bombard the 5 void shards immediately? Now you may say, there's still corrupted Protoss in the immediate area. Well, not immediately surrounding the void shards, as you can see everything around the void shards is dead, so they'd be in no immediate danger of being destroyed by an orbital bombardment. Noob challenge, no time to question it. With my terrible starting army of Sentinel Stalker, I proceed to run out of resources after destroying the first 2 shards and lower the difficulty to hard. Using my Sentinels to tank and my Stalkers to deal damage, I overwhelm the enemies at each shard first before focusing down the shards. Due to my lack of static defense, I constantly have to return home due to frequent counterattacks. But eventually I clear the final shard, and the mission ends. Salvation actually gives me an okay starting army of Sentinels, Stalkers, and Annihilators. I need to hold for 30 minutes until the Keystone is fully charged. No questions for this mission, it's fairly sensible. Hold on, why don't the heroes respawn after dying? Respawn mechanics have been a thing since Heart of the Swarm, and would definitely make your allies far more useful than they end up being during the mission. Also, if the Keystone could just pull Amon out of all of the Kali, then why not just charge it on the Spear of Adun while running away? Just capture a possessed Kali, charge up the stone on the move, and have the Kali relay Artanis' message to the rest of the Protoss. Problem solved. Noob challenge, no time to question it. With my diverse army, I proceed to lower the difficulty to hard. Normal. I had to lower things to normal. As it turns out, not having splash damage really sucks. I suppose I could have used Vanguards, but unlike Annihilators, they can't shoot up and there's a large amount of Sky Toss later in the mission. To defend, I focus priority targets with Shadow Cannon while using my Stalkers for anti-air. As the mission progresses, I split my production between the 3 entrances, allowing my allies to build up their armies to the point of actually being useful. Eventually, time runs out, and the mission ends. Into the Void once again gives me a decent starting force of Sentinel, Stalker, and Annihilator. I need to destroy Noob, who was already destroyed, but this time I'm destroying him. Not much to question about this one. Hold on. If Noob is the main target of this mission, why doesn't Artanis just bombard him with the Spear of Adun? Noob challenge, no time to question it. You know the drill, use Shadow Cannon to focus fire, use Stalkers for anti-air, take out the corruption structures, and win. It's time for Kerrigan to become Xel'Naga again. Now why Oros doesn't just beat Amon himself is beyond me, though I suppose he needs Kerrigan's dino power to match Amon or something. Noob challenge, no time to question it. Since Kerrigan's part squid now, I suppose she could be counted as a new unit. Also, this mission's pretty insane without her. I get access to Marine, Marauder, Shrike Turret, and Siege Tank, which I can use to defend Kerrigan until she goes full squid. I also have to protect my allies Artanis and Zagara. Now given that the Spear of Adun and Leviathan are a thing, it's odd that neither Artanis nor Zagara bother to use them to protect Kerrigan. But as a noob, it's not my place to question strategic decisions when fighting an Eldritch Abomination. Anywho, by forming defensive lines of bunkers, marines, marauders, and siege tanks, I managed to hold off the enemy attacks. I also used Kerrigan's laser beam to take out priority targets like Thor's, Colossi, battlecruisers, and Ultralisks. The only downside to my army is my subpar anti-air, since marines and Shrike turrets are evidently not the best way to take out advanced alien warships. But as usual, lasers. Eventually time runs out, and the mission ends. Amon's Fall gives me access to Corpser Roaches, Swarm Queens, and Squidigan. Squidigan can shoot lasers, heal, teleport armies to creep, and wipe out all the enemies on the map. Now why she's the only one that can beat Amon when she can barely handle a bunch of magic rocks is beyond me, but as a noob, it's not my place to question consistency or power levels.
It's like nothing I've faced before.
But you destroyed the Ancient One. You captured the power of Orzeros.
This is something born of the void. Cold and empty, but so powerful it hurts.
Anywho, I need to destroy 7 floating rocks around the map. As I build up the army at home, I push with Squiddig into each of the rocks. Her healing ability is probably the most useful since the laser beam doesn't do much damage on higher levels and her extinction attack has a very long cooldown. Whenever I run out of rocks to smash, I send my army to destroy void rifts to clear pathways around the map. Eventually, Amon eats all of my bases, and Raynor is completely destroyed, but with the help of Artanis' forces, I destroy the final rock, and the mission ends.
Fought and killed Zealot.
So can you? Nope. The Prologue campaign alone would prevent me from actually doing the main campaign at all. But looking at the main campaign separately, Fire alone would keep me from doing half the missions. Spear of Adun only gives me cannons and batteries, and Last Stand only gives me Kadaran monoliths. Sky Shield, Purification, Rack Shear, the Host, Salvation, and Into the Void don't introduce any new units. But how many missions can be done with the unit introduced? Without lowering the difficulty, only 1 out of 3 Prologue missions can be done with the units introduced. If I include the other 2 missions where I did need to lower the difficulty, this increases to 3 out of 3 Prologue missions. As for the main campaign, only 8 out of 19 missions can truly be done with new units. If I include missions where I had to lower the difficulty to win with the unit introduced, this increases to 10 out of 19. If I include missions where I only made starting units, this increases to 17 out of 19. As for the Epilogue, if we forget about the Prologue and main campaign, technically all 3 missions can be done with the units introduced. The Protoss campaign isn't too bad, but the 3 parts make it kind of impossible to complete without taking each part separately. Also, there's a lot of missions without new units, and my starting army is pretty garbage in some of the later missions. Remember, sign up for Patreon to help support my channel. Unless you're broke like me, then save your money. Shoutouts to Aussie G-Man, Gladys Marino, Happy Acrid, and Scott Replinger for supporting the channel. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, share, comment, subscribe, and don't use ancient alien warships to solve your problems.